Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that has very little time to do an intro today. I'm one of your hosts, John Bruford, joined by your other host. Yes, he's actually here, Fintan Costello. Fintan, hello.
Ta-da!
I know, right? I mean, I'm feeling warm and fuzzy, and I hope all of our listeners are feeling warm and fuzzy as well. You haven't pissed yourself. It's just that feeling of happiness that Fintan is here.
That's what I aim for. That warm feeling in the trousers is what I'm aiming for.
Exactly. We're all aiming for that in life. Fintan, obviously very busy executive type person with some wildly successful business things going on, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. Very, very cool. And we've got some stuff going on we can't talk about right now because it's top secret. But as you're here, I was just thinking maybe we could mention our sponsors.
I think we should.
Can you remember who they are?
It's been a while. We've got Optimove, the gambling industry's #1 CRM software.
Oh, yes, we have.
We do. They're brilliant at personalization and taking all your data and making sense of it and sending the right marketing messages to the right people. Great.
It's what they do, man. It's what they do.
Click the link, book the demo, tell them we sent you.
Seriously, you're not going to be unhappy with the demo. You're really not.
For sure. And then we've got the wonderful folks at Odds Matrix.
Odds Matrix.
Everybody's
favorite Matrix. Well, probably second favorite Matrix because the first movie was pretty decent.
Bullet time. Odds Matrix, I'm going to say it, the gambling industry's #1 sportsbook. Fuck it.
Whoa.
I'm going to say it. I'm just going to throw it out there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I know I'm right. Brilliant bunch. Okay. Software's great.
I don't disagree with chairman.
They can do all the markets. They're fucking processing billions of bets and thousands of markets and in play.
Well, yeah, the proof's in the pudding, right? And they're out there rocking it. They're crushing it. And people, most importantly, people are switching to them. I'm seeing releases every friggin' week. Somebody is taking them on.
They are the destination for tier 1 bookies globally. If you've got a tier 1 sports book and you just want to bring in the experts to run your software and run your business, they're the guys to use. And yeah, and what's really cool about them is that they've got boots on the ground because sportsbook's so local, right? Like every country's got its thing, every country's got its sport, its markets, its nuance. And where I think Odds Matrix do super, super many things, but the boots on the ground, like that local knowledge of like, we've got people in that country that you're in, and we're not localizing it, we're making it for you, and this is going to be exactly.
Well, didn't Mark stress that when he was on? Mark Schmidt, who's now running them in Africa.
I think he just got a big promo. Yeah, I'm not saying it's related to the podcast, but
not saying.
Let's be honest. If you want to get promoted, come on the pod.
It's a fair point.
Yeah.
I mean, although I've never been promoted, and I'm on it every fucking week.
You've been promoted.
Have I?
Yeah, you're CEO.
What was I before then?
CEO boy, I don't know.
Barely. So, but that leaves that leaves one final sponsor.
The mighty Clarion and their iGaming. What do they call it? iGaming. What's the?
Are you talking about IGB Live?
IGB Live in London,
which is switching to London this summer, and it's going to be in early July. Yeah. At XL. And we all know what a fantastic venue XL is, especially now the Elizabeth line stops outside the door.
But then you also get, because it's summertime, they've got all the plans for like outside along the water, along the riverfront and stuff, and there's going to be all sorts of stuff going on there. I think
London in summer is pretty sexy. Even I'd admit that.
I can't wait.
I'm actually going to go.
Me too. I'm already booked.
Yeah, but it makes sense for you to go. I'm just going to go. It'd probably be fun.
Yeah. So that's our mighty corporate overlords.
Well, fabulous. But who's our guest today?
We have the cerebral, the strong, the mighty, Steve Ruddock.
Steve Ruddock.
Of Straight to the Point.
Captain America of newsletters.
Straight to the Point newsletter. Straight to the Point podcast. All-round good guy. All-round legend.
Great beard. Really good beard.
Just yeah, there's a presence to him. I like it. And there's a thoughtfulness that's really nice.
There's a solidity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's the martial arts. I think that does a lot for you.
Maybe. But I meant more in terms of his presence.
Yeah,
But you think that comes from the martial arts?
but it's very much like if you're, yeah, it's anybody who does that kind of fighting type stuff always has an awareness and a presence about them because
You haven't met my brother, have you? He's been doing karate for like 50 years.
yeah, but like a real sport, a real martial
Oh, you've seen Cobra Kai, you cheeky fuck.
arts. So it's yeah, he's good, and we're talking all things America. So we talk about
Yeah.
Kalshi, we talk
But,
about AGA.
very specifically, we start the episode going into the AGA's new RG messaging and how it's better. And then we get into Kalshi and the CFTC. Did I get it the right way around then? And is it gambling? Is it not? Oh man, it's just a head fuck. But it is an interesting episode, and Steve's like he's one of those people where he's not a rent-a-gob. He's not an opinion. It's backed up. He really knows his stuff, so it's well worth a listen.
It's why we go to visit our expert for sure.
It's true. It's true. So enjoy the episode, and Fintan, thank you for being here.
Well, I've got to go, so come on, hurry.
Okay. Sorry, Jess back. Delighted to welcome this week's guest. None other than I forgot to say returning guest, which is always like it makes me feel like we're not total assholes when people come back, or maybe they just come back to it's like going back around to look at a car crash again. Oh yeah, still dead. We are joined by Mr. Steve Ruddock of the Straight to the Point newsletter, which if you're not subscribing to it, what planet are you on? It's arguably the best newsletter out there at the moment.
Big fan.
Yeah, it really is excellent. And obviously we've had Steve on before. We like to think of him as the Captain America of the gambling industry, both in terms of his morals, his values, and his beautiful little face. Steve, welcome.
Oh, I don't even know what to do now after that introduction. So thanks, guys. Thanks for the kind words. And, well, you're sending the video out so people will know you're lying. But, yeah.
Would it be wrong to call you Steve Rogers instead of Steve Ruddock?
Yeah, that would be a little odd.
Fintan could be Bucky, and I could be the Red Skull.
Captain America gambling podcast.
Now you're talking. This is how we reach the kids.
Gonna have to put a disclaimer on the podcast now. 21 plus.
Fuck.
Oh, that goes on automatically. Explicit content, parental guidance.
Yeah, may contain satire just in case Americans are listening. No, I'm not dissing Americans, Steve. We love you. We wish we still had you in many ways, I think. So anyway, Steve, right? So I reached out to you, a week and a half ago, something like that, because of there was a really, really positive response to the American Gaming Association's new RG flannel. And I'm going to continue to call it flannel until they actually do something. Because I've been highly critical of the AGA since Frank Fahrenkopf left, actually. I've been extremely critical, but I've never been more critical than I have with the current people. So I'm here to be convinced that they're doing something somewhere between right and right-ish. Can you tell me what the new position is on RG? What's the new scheme? I mean, is it as powerful as the UK one, which was when the fun stops, stop?
That's yeah. So the reason I like the initiative, play smart from the start. I'm not a fan of taglines like that. I don't think they ever work. I think they just turn people off. But I like the benchmarks that they've set for it because they focus on positive messaging rather than every instance of RG and PG messaging I've ever seen is you are on a road to nowhere, that you're going to go off the rails. If it's not today, it's tomorrow. So you better be really careful. And it's almost like if every time you went to get a drink at a bar, the person was like, "Are you sure you want this drink?" Like, is this the drink you want? Are you sure this one's alcohol volume's a little higher than the one you got last week? I'm not sure. So I like the new messaging just in terms of what it's saying. So I think a couple of the things it's doing is it's trying to change the way the messaging around RG is relayed to the customer. So I always say RG is your catastrophe insurance, right? If it wasn't sold to you properly, you would just say, I don't need that. I don't need a volcano insurance. I don't need flood insurance. I don't live near this. But if they said to you, hey, it's only $10 a year, you'd be like, yeah, just throw it on, give it to me. So I think that's the way RG messaging needs to work is you don't really need this, but just be aware that, we got your back if you do need it, right? Like it's just more of a worst case outcome. But you don't want to say that to people going, if you gamble, you're definitely going to need to use these things right away because no one has ever gambled responsibly.
Thing is, this feels like a step from the AGA, but that's all. This is not the final destination, not even in the sense of the movies, because it's just better than the previous shit.
Which isn't hard.
Well, no, it's really not. I mean, we are talking about Viagra customers, essentially. I mean, so like the thing with positive messaging, right, is sometimes it comes from a fear of being seen as the bad guy. It comes from the wrong place, and so isn't as positive as it perhaps could be. And I think I'm leaning towards a future where everything is just in the software and happening and being used automatically for every customer, right? Because putting the onus on the player before they have a problem, it's not working. It doesn't work. And people, it's like alcoholism. You've got to hit rock bottom before you come up and you go, fuck, I need help. Whereas surely this should be about prevention and preventing people from even discovering what rock bottom looks like, even from a distance. And that's what we can do. That's what we have. Those are the tools that we have that aren't being used in that way. And that comes down to regulation. But for some reason, I've just remembered a story from back when I worked at QVC, which is obviously an American company in England. Some of it translated well, most of it didn't. But I remember being in a meeting, this technology meeting for this amazing thing they were developing. And it was a really small team, and I was on it. And this guy kept using this word. And it was fear of saying the wrong thing. He kept saying, so if we just run a trial with that, then we can disenable it. And I'm like, what? Disenable it? You mean disable? Like the word disable is not offensive. It's not an offensive word at all. And you can use that in this context, and it means exactly what it means. Saying disenabled, there's nothing positive. There's nothing not negative. In fact, you're making an attempt at not being negative into a negative. See what I mean? And that's my worry about this sort of positive messaging thing, because it's still the onus on the player.
Dumb question of the day. What is the messaging? Like, what's the actual message?
Yeah, so the framework of it, so there's like 3 pillars to it, which the AGA is trying to use. The first one is the right state of mind. So gamble for the right reasons is how I would say it. So it's not as much don't gamble this amount. It's if I remember correctly, it's like don't use gambling to escape from your problems or as an easy way to get money. That's clear. Gamble for the right reasons. And one of the things I said in my newsletter at the time was people need to go into these things. So I agree with what Jon's saying, but I dislike the current messaging because it eliminates agency from the better. The bettor is no longer in control of their own behaviors. They are being manipulated at every turn by these big bad gambling companies. Is there some of that? Yes, that's the whole point of a company, to make money. But I think when you eliminate the agency from the bettor, they go into it with no plan, no no actionable, here's what I'm going to do when I get there. They don't People don't go to the casino and go, okay, I have $300 in my pocket. That's what we want them to do. So if you say you have no agency in this, if you bring a credit card to a casino, oh my God, you won't believe what's going to happen. And it's sort of like how we convey to kids all of the different risks they'll face. It's always worst case scenario. The problem is most people have never seen the worst case scenario. So they're like, you're giving me boogeyman vibes, right? Like yeah, I understand this might happen, but this happens to nobody. Where if you say to the person up front, listen, if you just go to the casino and you have a plan, like here's how much money I'm going to spend, it just makes it a lot easier. If you go to the gym with no workout routine in mind, what are you going to do? You're just going to walk in and go, I guess I'll walk on the treadmill today, right? When if you go there and you go, okay, I'm going to do chest, shoulders, and triceps, whatever. Don't anybody argue about my training splits. Then you go in, even if you're not feeling it, even if it's not a great day for you to be working out, you're not 100%. You have a plan. So at least you'll do, I'll just do one set of each or whatever for each body part and then get out of here. Stuck to your plan in some way. So I like the gamble for the right reasons mindset. And then I think another thing they mentioned was basically more transparency. Like they didn't say the casinos should be posting these, but I think this is what would be the ultimate for everybody is, what are the odds of the game? Like understand, like you're not going to win this game. You might get lucky here and there. Nobody understands variance. So variance is the big wrench in everything that happens with gambling. When people used to ask me about poker, I would say the best thing that can happen to you is you don't win the first time you play. You play your first poker tournament and you win. You think that's the way it is. And it takes a long time for you to realize, oh, maybe I'm not that good at this. Maybe I just got lucky. Because when you win first, the next 5 times you lose, you're like, I got unlucky. So if you know in advance that, okay, I'm not supposed to be winning this game, and I did, good for me, I think that helps. And then where my favorite part of the campaign, and again, this all comes down to execution. So these are just like the frameworks for it. The companies still have to execute on these plans. If they don't execute, then this is just the latest in another long line of, catchy titles. But one of the things I like to say is go without a plan is just a dream. So when you go to the casino with no plan, when you hop on a betting app for no reason whatsoever, that's where I think problems start to arise. And when you tell somebody, oh, well, you had no chance in this because these sites are manipulating you and doing this, that takes all the emphasis off of what the person is doing. I don't think the companies are not involved at all. I don't think the responsible gaming groups are not involved at all. Everybody has some measure of accountability in all of this. And when we just tell the customer that, well, this is what happens in gambling. Everybody is going down this road. Like my biggest gripe with RG people is, well, 2, they treat RG like it's problem gambling. And they think every gambler is on the road to problem gambling, and every person who doesn't gamble is on the road to gambling because they're being inundated by ads, all of these things. So basically everybody is at risk, where we can't just look at it like that. And I think that's where this new messaging that the AGA is trying to push through works better. I think it will bring fresher voices into the conversation. People like Jamie Salzberg, people who aren't just doom and gloomers who say, yeah, it's gambling's okay, but we do need the guardrails.
I did ask Jamie to come on and do this with you, but he said he's just fed up of shouting and nobody's listening, which I think is a damn shame, because if he's always the person that I point people towards,
Yeah.
as he's both he's a reasonable voice, he's got lived experience, and he comes at it from a commercial mindset, which is very different to almost everybody else. I was thinking about, while you were talking, Steve, I was thinking about, the messaging and all of that. And I was thinking, everything about CRM and all of that jazz now, everything is about a granular marketing, a personalization, a blah, blah, blah. And, I was saying before, if all of this is just in the back end, then that same level of granularity can be attached to RG tools. Like the cognitive dissonance thing, that's can be effective. Because the problem is, when you've got blanket messaging, marketing is the right message to the right person in the right way at the right time. And that's quite difficult to achieve. That's why there's advertising everywhere for everything. But say somebody's putting a bet on at 3:00 in the morning on the Kazakhstan table tennis amateur league, then I think it'd be reasonable to put a message onto their phone saying, "Hey, you fucked up. You might want to put your phone down." We know not to text our ex at 3:00 in the morning while we're drunk, although we've also all been there. I mean, presumably apart from you two, judging by your responses. I should just delete the numbers, shouldn't I? Anyway, but it's got to be the right message in the right language. I mean, it's...
Well, you can just bake. Well, the thing is, like, if you build on your point, you can just bake it into the product. So, like, so much of this could just be hardwired.
But then there's no conversation, is there? Because it's just happening. Nobody can piss and moan about it. And what you have is players who are already protected ahead of regulation.
Keith White was on my podcast recently, and he made a really good point, which is we know the incentives don't align between compliance RG departments and marketing departments, right? They're both looking for different things. But I think that regulators have missed the boat, and lawmakers, when they say you can't use bonus bets and things like this. Well, why not, instead of giving somebody a deposit bonus based on their play or how much they deposit, why not give it to them based on, hey, you set these limit tools, we'll give you 70% of your, so you start with 50% deposit bonus. That goes up to 70%. Oh, you watch this video tutorial about odds. It's 1.5 minutes. It doesn't take long to explain these things to somebody. Now you're up to 80%. Like there should be incentives for the person to
I said this like 2 years ago. I said this 2 years ago. Might even have been more than 2 years ago. Like, incentive, if you want people to step out of the process, and that's what it is right now, they have to come out of what they're doing and 2-3 clicks into the RG tools, etc. Right? Make it part of sign up, incentivize it in the right way, and then they'll forget they've ever done it. And that's what you want. That is exactly how you want it to work. You want the player to just forget about it, because it's working.
It's either incentivized and or hardwired in, because when we had Sarah Ramanauskas on a while ago talking about this, she made one of the points that's really stuck with me of gamblers by their very definition are risk takers. So any type of messaging they just assume doesn't apply to them. And that's the issue.
Yeah.
Because
that's why it's got to be baked in. You're not going to get the people that need this to volunteer for it.
Yeah. If they weren't risk takers, they wouldn't be here. So it has to be part of the product, just baked in.
And that's where the execution will come in with this. So I said in my newsletter, it's a great framework, but if there's no execution to it, if it's just, well, here's the message, do with it as you please, I think your point is exactly right. Everybody's just going, well, that doesn't apply to me. I don't have a problem. 90% of people who have a problem don't think they have a problem.
Exactly.
Jamie and I have talked about this many times, which is you're not a problem gambler. And again, so I use that term and people are like, it's not a problem gambler. It's somebody suffering from a gambling problem. Well, okay, great. But now you're telling them it's not their problem when they know it's their problem. How they got there is a whole different conversation.
Yep.
But Jamie and I say this all the time. You're not a problem gambler 100% of the time. They don't wake up and say, oh, yesterday was a great day when I blew through every dollar I had and put another $1,000 on my credit cards. They know. Just like you're not an alcoholic 100% of the time. You know you have a problem. You're like, nobody wakes up and goes, boy, that was great. I feel horrible this morning. And yeah, I can't wait to do that again. You just say like, oh man, I really regret that. And then unfortunately, you've built in a habit to yourself where you just keep doing it and you're having trouble breaking the cycle. So when we look at it and we say, oh, well, they're just going to hit rock bottom and then they'll know. It's like most people don't. Or they know right away, but they can't get help. They don't know how to get help. There's all of these barriers in place. And for whatever reason, they think, well, I can do it myself. I don't need to reach out to somebody. I'm not going to gamble anymore. And maybe they don't for a week. And then all of a sudden they're back. Massachusetts had a really interesting study where they tracked customers when casinos opened. And they put them into these categories. So problem, at risk, not, casual, hobbyist, whatever they call them. And 3 years later, when they revisited that same group, they were shocked that some of the problem gamblers were now in the casual gambler category, and some were just disappeared entirely. So it's like people don't stay in these lanes that we want to create for them. They move around, and it's just the way we have to deal with it.
But it's also very important to recognize and remember that gambling addiction as a symptom thing, and if you don't take care of those environmental issues, you're fucked. I mean, because that's the thing. Like, yeah, like you say, you might stop for, like me with sugar. Fuck. I mean, okay, it's not a comparable addiction. It's not nearly as destructive. Although it does make me fart quite a bit. But something will happen, and I'll go buy a cake, and it's not ideal, and it's not great for me, and I know that while I'm eating it. I don't know. I'm going to feel horrible in a couple of hours. But it's part of this whole environmental thing. And there's a little switch in here that goes, oh, something shit's happening. Go get a cake or a beer or some cigarettes or some drugs.
And it can be something totally outside your control too. Like you could just be at work one day and you meet somebody and now you've got a girlfriend and all of a sudden, you're not interested in gambling. This other thing's taking up my time. Or you're like, you know what, I started going to the gym and now I'm heavy into working out and I've joined CrossFit and just things change in your life, right? Like that happens too. Like when we're putting people in these lanes, we're not looking at that because the whole thing, it's got to be holistic. The treatment has got to be holistic. It's got to be multi-agency. And the example we had, do you remember we had that fantastic lady on from Gordon Moody, Fintan?
Yes, we did.
She was just a fucking angel sent to this earth. And she, I mean, it was a revelation to me, but as soon as she said it out loud, I was like, fuck, of course it is. Yeah, one of the main drivers for problem gambling among women is domestic abuse. Well, it makes perfect sense when you say it out loud, but I would never have put those two things together. So you can treat the gambling issue, but you've got to treat the domestic abuse as well. To treat the domestic abuse, you've got to have a massively holistic view. You've got to, and what people always talk about, the proliferation of bookies and all this. They're always in poor areas. Yeah, because those are the people that want to fucking escape.
Yeah.
They're the people that need fucking hope because they've got nothing. So unless you start with poverty, unless you start with deprivation, it's all fucking pointless. Sorry, got a bit heated there, but do you know what I mean? It's something that fucking irritates. Oh yeah, these bookies, they're preying on the weak. Do you know what? That's the only fucking hope somebody's got sometimes. And you don't recognize that because you're fucking middle class and you're speaking from a fucking ivory tower. Sorry, gets right on my tits.
But that's the problem. That's why Jamie's experience is so valuable. So this happens in my martial arts school. I'll be teaching something, and then I realize I am teaching a situation that men will get into, right? Like drunk guy at a bar bumps into you, wants to swing you. That does not really happen to women. You know,
You've never been to Shropshire, have you, dude?
You look at somebody too long, like and they're like, "What are you looking at?" Right? Like that is there's a different reaction when it's a man, and you have
I know
to
how to deal with that,
understand
though.
What happens to men is different than what happens to women, and that's a big thing in self-defense circles. Most women, their issues are domestic. There's somebody they know. Men don't quite have that same concern for that. But I think that's the problem with the current thinking around RG and PG is everybody's looking at it through their lens. Like you said, a middle class, I make a decent living, I have a nice government job or NGO job type of lens. And they're looking at all of these other people that are suffering and going, oh, well, I know how to help them. You know, I'll just do it like I would talk to my kids. And it's like, that's not what they need. They don't need your pity. They need.
I would go and get drunk and get a gambling addiction just to spite somebody like that.
But that's pretty much, if you look at the people in the space, that's what we have. We have, you know, middle class, you know, college educated people wondering why these other groups, and this isn't anything but same as me with not understanding the problems women will face in self-defense situations. Most of the people in the industry on the RG side are female, and the biggest cohort of problem gamblers are young males. I can't get my teenage kids to listen to me. They sure are not going to listen to somebody who's not their mother, who's trying to give them motherly advice, right? There is a disconnect between what we're serving them and what they actually need.
What you're saying about the person wanting to take a swing at you in a bar, you looked at them for too long. I've got loads of lines for that, and I've never actually been beaten up yet. And some of them are really.
Oh, I have that same shirt.
No. My favorite one is one where you actually annoy everybody involved. And what are you looking at? I was looking at your mum's tits. And then they're like, what? That's not my mum. That's my girlfriend. No, your mum sent me a picture of them. You just take the wind out of their sails by just going, this is the worst case scenario.
That would not get shot.
Surely that just gets you punched harder.
Yeah.
It hasn't happened yet.
So if anybody wants some free advice on this, you have to have 2 lies. You have to have 2 made up lies before you ever walk out into the world. The first one is when anything like that happens, you cut somebody off and they get out and they're confronting you. Hey, what are you looking at? That's, you know, sorry, my grandmother just passed away this morning. I didn't see you there. I wasn't really thinking. Because that will kind of diffuse the situation. But the lie has to allow the person to win the confrontation. Has to allow that person to go home and say, I would have kicked this guy's ass, but, you know, his grandmother passed away. It could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be a grandmother. But yeah, that's the first lie. The second lie is what you say right before you're going to hit them first. So you have to have some type of statement lined up. And the trick is it's a question that's open-ended. So the one that most commonly uses, why can't we talk about this? And then on this, you punch them or slap them or whatever it's going to be. So if you say, can we talk about this? They go, no. And now they're ready to fight, right? So you have to say, why can't we talk about this? Or to John's point, I've heard people go, what's your favorite kind of cheesecake? Right? Because it just makes your brain engage for a second. Like, what did that person say? And on cheesecake, you're getting hit. But yeah, so those are the two good lies. Always have a good lie about why you did something, even if you didn't do it. That's going to make the person, feel bad for you, that they can walk away winning.
What if we both like the same kind of cheesecake? Can we not just go and have
Well,
cheesecake?
I've already hit him. I don't find out the answer. That's the problem. It's never happened,
yeah.
but
I can't help but think that if I lived in America, I would have been killed a long time ago.
Long time.
Yeah, probably.
Long time ago.
God bless America. Anyway, now that we've fixed that.
Yeah, RG solved.
Yeah. Obviously, one of the big this story, it just keeps rearing its ugly head, and I keep seeing it in the Compliance and More newsletters. They're doing a really nice job of covering it. You've done it a fair bit in yours as well. Kalshi and the predictions market, and no, that's not gambling. It just feels like a mess, a real mess, and one that it feels like it should be relatively easy to clear up with regulatory boundaries nicely defined. So everybody, so we talked a little bit before we started recording, and what this had me thinking about was, I remember, with the illegal machine seizures that they were doing quite a bit last year and the year before. I think might have been in Michigan, and they'd seized all these machines, and then they had no idea what to do with them because it didn't come under the police's remit, and it didn't come under the ATF's remit. And it's basically, everybody was just like, well, we've taken them because we think they're illegal. We're not sure why, and we're not sure what to do with them or who should be doing it. This whole, so to Steve, jump in if I'm summarizing badly. So I think Kalshi's at the forefront of this. They are regulated by the CTFC, is it?
CFTC.
Oh, so close. That was my second choice. Which regulates, trading and all that sort of jazz, financial trading, financial markets, and forecasts and shorts and longs. And The Big Short was a great movie. And Kalshi are offering, stop me if my definition's wrong, but it's short-term contracts on sports events. So it's just kind of a fancy way of saying sports betting. But they're really fighting their corner because they're kicking off in Nevada and is it Maryland, the other one?
New Jersey and Maryland now.
Okay. So what's going on?
So Kalshi's offering a product that if anybody's ever used a betting exchange, it's basically that. It's a betting exchange. They say it's peer-to-peer, but there are market makers behind it, so it's not quite peer-to-peer, so they're facilitating it. I guess it would be like saying a poker room is not a gambling hall because we only facilitate the game. It's the people who are playing in the game that are gambling. So there's 3 lawsuits right now. They won a temporary restraining order in Nevada, so they're allowed to continue operating there. New Jersey's done oral arguments. Maryland's suit was filed today. So I was talking to attorney Andrew Kim recently, and his purview is they need divergent court rulings so that the Supreme Court will take it up. So it doesn't seem like Nevada is going to continue their appeal. They basically didn't make very good arguments. New Jersey's arguments seem a little bit stronger on the surface of why these shouldn't be allowed. So if Nevada doesn't continue the appeal and they only have the New Jersey lawsuit, the Supreme Court might be like, well, we don't need to bother with that because that's been settled at the district level or the Court of Appeals. And so that you might see more and more of these lawsuits pop up, whether it's Maryland and other places, just because if you have 2 different rulings, it makes it more likely that the Supreme Court will get involved because they have to settle these divergent opinions between courts. Um, it all comes down to one question. So there's, I believe, 30 different threads people have been picking at in this case, which is, does it involve the Wire Act? Are they really peer to peer? What, all of these different things. It comes down to, does the CFTC regulate these things, or do state gaming regulators also have a hand in it? So if the ruling is this is completely up to the CFTC, then that's the end of it, because the CFTC can, based on the rules that people keep pointing at about gaming, like they're not allowed to offer markets on assassination, on all of these different things. No, it says it's up to the CFTC to decide if any of these markets conflict with the public interest, like gaming. So it's up to the CFTC if they're the sole regulator. Now, if they're not, then we have a different problem. I think Dustin Goker said it best. Feels like this is either, $1 billion industry or zero. There doesn't seem to be much in between here based on what happens.
Yeah. It's a couple of things in there that I think are super, super interesting. But one of them, I can't remember where I read this, but it was a really great point somebody made. It might have been you, Steve, about how regulators basically don't have the money to pursue things. So fundamentally, what they're doing is they'll write a cease and desist letter, but that's about it. And that seems to be what Kalshi's slightly banking on, because Kalshi does have deep pockets. The Nevada Gaming Regulatory Control Board comparatively really doesn't. It's got a fixed amount of budget, and that's all about what it deals with day to day. A new entrant in there, that's new funding, that's new money. Plus, they're willing to go to bat over it. And I think that's quite interesting, because if that does turn out to be the case, and let's face it, it probably is going to turn out to be the case, then that is, the last couple of years, we've seen an awful lot of inaction from regulators, and also proof that regulators have been doing pretty much jack shit. Australia, Nevada, others, but those two really stand out. And it's kind of, we've got so many instances where the regulators could define things, where boundaries could be redrawn with new technology in mind and all of that. And instead, what we're seeing is that, people in the industry constantly say, oh, third most regulated industry in the world. Yeah, but I think, aviation and pharmaceuticals regulations actually regulate.
Sometimes.
And I'm not sure our regulators do.
Sometimes.
If you read the Purdue stuff.
Unless you work for Boeing, obviously it doesn't apply to Boeing.
So what I would say to that is, it doesn't matter. If the CFTC is determined to be the regulator for these markets, the states can write whatever they want. The CFTC, the federal laws preempt whatever the states are doing. So it doesn't matter. I think where the regulators and lawmakers, I won't put this on regulators' lap, they've put so many barriers. Like, Kalshi is sport trade. Kalshi is a betting exchange. But there are so many barriers in place that prevent a betting exchange from operating in so many states, just financial burdens, regulatory burdens. There's all of these things that sport trade's only active in 5 or 6 states because they have a lower barrier of entry. So the answer to Kalshi is legal regulated options. If you don't have those, you have a Kalshi. If you don't have those, you have sweepstakes sites. So if you offer a legal regulated option, not that Kalshi isn't regulated, I don't want to confuse anybody. They are regulated by the CFTC. There's a lot of regulation that goes into that. It's just different.
Fourth most regulated thing in the world.
It's different than gaming regulation. It's different than what we expect from somebody offering sports markets. We expect specific RG protocols in place. We expect standard things. And Kalshi has done some on their own. I believe they've contracted with IC360. But again, that kind of just points to, well, if you need that, then aren't you betting? Like,
Shh. Christ, Steve.
But it's your point's super valid. So I can't remember the lads' names, but we had a US betting exchange guys on a couple of years ago, and just before they were about to launch, I think in New Jersey, and they were talking about everything that they had to do, of like everybody had to be within the state, the market makers had to be in the state, the servers had to be in the state. Like it was a really kind of like state by state type, like every state was its own little kind of company, and it didn't work out. I think they're doing sweeps now or something. It didn't work out. But you know, betting exchanges don't work from a like mass market adoption perspective. So there's two. So I think there's a really interesting point of like, if Kalshi is working, it's because of lack of regulation or other options, right? This is the best of a bad bunch in terms of what people would prefer. But what I'm curious is like, how much business are they actually doing? Is it really that big a deal?
So that's I asked that question in my newsletter, and I said the same thing. It's like it's not like we don't have a situation where Polymarket is operating aside legal sports betting options, right? It's not like this doesn't exist. Betfair's been doing this for quite some time. So yeah, is there a market for it? I think some people like it, some people don't. I don't think it's the end of legal sports betting as we know it, as some people have been saying. Even if Kalshi gets free reign, I think the markets tend to figure these things out on their own. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but yeah, it's hard to say what their market is like, because of trading volume is not apples to apples for handle, and handle's a terrible use of understanding what's going on, in my opinion, anyway, because you have just a lot of recycled money that has been given away that is still propping up handle numbers across the country.
Well, the issue with a betting exchange from a business model perspective is you will have customers on your exchange making more money than the exchange, right? And that was always Betfair's biggest issue. And that's why they introduced the premium charge and all this kind of stuff, because they were just not making money, but there was people making a fortune on it.
Yeah.
So there's a huge, like in theory, if Kalshi actually has to compete in a state on a marketing perspective, the bookies have way more firepower.
Yeah. I was talking to Dustin Goker about this when he was on my podcast, and I said, the thing what happens if Kalshi gets free reign and then they start offering vanity markets? All the sharps come in and be like, those are so mispriced. It's like, it's not going to be this great pricing thing that happens because of bets. There has to be a starting point somewhere. There has to be something. And I think it just, it has the same issues that a regular sportsbook would have. At some point you go, we can't put those markets up, or we got to limit them to this amount. Like, what happens when that starts happening? Because everybody's like, oh, this is capitalism at its best. Everybody gets to do what they need to do. And it's like, yeah, but then the company also needs to make money. And if their market makers start like, hey, we're not doing too well on these, because it's like, if you're a sports book and you're offering 1,000 markets, there are people out there that know 1 and 2 of those markets so well they're better than you. And I would wonder, like, sports books kind of weed those people out. I'm wondering how quickly Kalshi could pick up on that, right? Like, how does it work on an exchange? What are the regulations around that? These are all like questions I don't know. I don't know what if a CFTC regulated trading platform can prevent somebody from betting with or trading with them. I don't know.
But that's not how all that'll happen is that those sharps just make more money, and it becomes the poker liquidity issue of the sharks are taking money out of the system, and you need more fish to keep the system.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, does Kalshi suddenly come up with an idea that, oh, well, you're only allowed to do $20 on these specific markets? Like, are there market, like, so when I was talking to Andrew Kim, my thinking on this is Kalshi does have a decent argument for, some of these things have economic impact. Maybe there's a way in this. Andrew's kind of like, I don't know how you would do that, and I don't know how to do this either. But if you said I was offering these contracts on tentpole events, the Super Bowl, the Masters, it would make a little bit of sense. But when it's, the Timberwolves versus the Lakers on a random Tuesday night, I mean, what's the actual, public interest of that? How is that in the public interest? I can see how you could make a case that, hey, the Super Bowl, there's economic impact, there's public interest. This is within the public interest of how this turns out. So I could see that, because you could just say like, hey, the Super Bowl parade brings in this much for the city. So yeah, there's economic consequences. But it's such a, honestly, of all the products that have come along over the years, DFS, we're not sports betting, we're entry fees, we're contests, DFS 2.0, like, now then with sweepstakes, like John, you said, skill games, slots, there's all of these random things people have tried. This is the most intriguing one, and it could completely upset what happens. I don't think it will, but there is a a case to be made that everything could go sideways. But then again, you have states that would be like, hey, we just lost $100 million a year in revenue from sports betting, because half of the money that was bet on sports books is now being bet on this thing, and we're getting no part of that. We need this thing in our state. What do we do? Okay, well, let's pass a law where we legalize, betting exchanges of some sort, or we have these things. But I think you make the perfect point, which is betting exchanges don't really work. They've never been proven to be game changers in it. It's a great idea in concept, right? Like, it makes sense perfectly in concept, but so does a no rake poker room, right? There's a lot of things that make perfect sense that just don't work. Yeah. And this seems to be one of those things where I think, to your point, it's interesting now because they're able to offer this in places where there is no other legal options. People like legal options for betting, and this is one of them right now in certain places.
They like simple legal options, where, I was in the UK when Betfair was kind of rising, and all the bookies were, everybody had a war room of what do we do about Betfair, and oh my God. And it's too complicated. I just want to stick my tenner on and place my bet and go on, and I don't really want to have to, learn a new interface and am I buying or selling or what am I doing? When a user has to learn how to use a product, unless the product is significantly better than the alternatives, they're just not going to bother. And that's the learning curve doesn't compensate for, like, you're not getting a better experience or a significantly better experience than just sticking $10 with DraftKings.
I will say the Kalshi trend line thing, that makes total sense to everybody watching it in real time. I think it's a great in-play product. I love it because you can watch it. And I think people would be more likely to use it for in-play reasons. I think people who are, watching the game and betting at the same time, because that trend line, we see it. We've seen it in NBA games now, chances of winning. We've seen it over the years. We've seen in presidential elections. They use that. So people are very familiar with that. And I think Kalshi's done a really good job of, I believe it's Kalshi. I think it's Kalshi or something. I'm not sure. But I'll just say it's my Boston accent. They've done a really good job of using that in their posts to say, hey, here's how you can tell what's going on.
But surely, like, what the gambling industry is really good at is copying good ideas. So like every product team right now is looking at that.
Yep.
And it's got a UX and are figuring out how to make it, and there's mock-ups, and like my guess would be before the NFL kickoff, every sports book has that line.
Yeah.
Or
I've
that
said
graphic.
that I was talking to somebody who has a product that they were trying to, you know, make people aware of, and I said you just got to be careful because it's a little imitatable, right? It's easily imitatable. So if you show it, it's like, oh, we can easily do our own version of that. So that is a big problem. I think people in this industry figure it out really fast. Like I forget who was the first fast fold. It was, I think, was it the
Full
French
Tilt.
company?
Oh no, it was Winamax.
Winamax, correct.
And then it was
And
Full
then you had
Tilt,
Rush
and then-
Poker. Then
Yeah.
it's imitatable, great product, but
Yeah. It was the
you
same
almost
with
get
Cash Out.
penalized for being first.
It was the early cash out and accumulators was the other.
Yeah. So that, and early cash out is what Kalshi is, right? It's just it is a different product than a traditional sports bet, which is either you win or you lose. With Kalshi, you can go in and out whenever you want. So it's basically like early cash out. So it is slightly different. That's kind of the differentiation they're trying to make, but it's extremely complicated. And honestly, I think it comes down to it's going to be one of those cases where logic doesn't make the determination of what happens. It's which one is the most disruptive for everything we're doing. So does the CFTC want to regulate sports betting, which they have gotten feedback and letters saying you guys aren't equipped to deal with this. Here's what you're going to have to do if you take on this project, right? Like, are they going to say, well, you know what, we'll just hire 500 more people to think about what they'd have to do to oversee a sports betting product as regulators? There's regulators in every state doing this. There's all of these things that suddenly we'll handle that, no problem. You're just going to hire all the state regulators. Like, how are you going to handle that? So I think there's a lot of questions about what's the feasible way of doing this, because they might just say, no matter how friendly they are to Kalshi, you got Donald Trump Jr. on the advisory, strategic advisor. You've got this guy coming in as a CFTC chair who is on the board of Kalshi. There's 4 other commissioners. They might be like, I don't want to deal with this. This is way beyond what we can handle. You don't know yet. We supposed to get this roundtable at the end of April. We'll see. Should be interesting, but I don't know. I have no idea. Anybody who thinks it's this is what's going to happen, I don't know.
Okay. What is your favorite cheesecake, Steve?
I'd probably say raspberry. I like the raspberry in it.
Okay, Fintan?
I just love cheesecake. Like, I don't know if I could pick. I like lime. Lime's quite nice.
Yeah. I had some Biscoff cheesecake the other week. Just seriously.
Along the same lines, I like a ricotta cheese pie.
Ooh, there we go.
But that is super filling.
That's the thing. You say ricotta cheese pie, and now I'm thinking, are we drawing a parallel here between, sports futures and sports betting?
It could.
Is it a cheesecake? Is it a cheese dessert? Who regulates it?
Where are you allowed to sell it? Is it in the bakery or is it in the dairy section?
Exactly.
There's a lot of court cases around that. So because of VAT rules, so the famous one in the UK was Jaffa cakes.
Jaffa cakes, yeah.
Is it a cake or is it a biscuit? And it was 2 different VAT treatments. And then I think Pringles was the same. Was Pringles a crisp or was it a biscuit or something like that? And it's because in some countries Pringles aren't classified as crisps because they don't have enough potato or something in it.
Yeah.
But there's some weird.
So it's not just a gambling thing, is what you're saying.
And shouldn't McDonald's shakes be counted as crisps? They've got so
we
little
don't
dairy
know,
in
'cause
and so much starch.
There hasn't been an operational McDonald's shake machine in the U.S. since like 1997.
It's true.
Because there's some crazy, like there's one company that is allowed service the milkshake machines, and they've got some crazy contract with McDonald's, so they deliberately let them break.
Yeah.
But I think like Five Guys or Wendy's, like one of the big competitors, uses the same machines, but doesn't have the same problems. It's this weird thing.
Again, God bless America.
It's just like gambling.
It's global. It's McDonald's milkshake machines anyway.
Started in America, though. Definitely started in America.
It's weird. For such a clever company, that seems like such a flaw in their.
You found their Achilles heel.
Clearly.
America exports the harms, just like Massachusetts used to say about gambling, where we import the harms and export the financial gains of casinos before we legalize casinos. It's like that's a really good argument.
I love it.
Well, Steve Ruddock, thank you very much for joining us and covering that. I think we've fixed everything.
Yeah, I think we've confused everyone.
So I hope the right people were listening. We've always said we're the decision makers podcast, so I suspect we'll see law changes by the end of next week. In the
the whole thing.
Easy.
Yeah. No, Steve, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope your newsletter continues to grow.
And his podcast. Don't forget his podcast.
Oh, and his podcast. Is the podcast also called Straight to the Point?
Yeah, straight to the point, talking shop podcast, because I do zero editing and just kind of a free flow conversation. I don't know where I would get that idea from.
Crazy.
We do so much post production. It's
so much, and it's so many hours of rehearsal before we even start.
Yeah, you did really well with your script this week. Well done.
Thank you. I was really pleased with how I found a way to bring it back to cheesecake.
Yeah, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, my usual outreach is want to come on the podcast. That's it. What are we going to talk about? We'll figure it out.
We should try that, Fintan. We should try just winging it. Just make life a bit easier for ourselves.
I don't know if I could.
Once.
I'll get nervous.
It takes a special kind of insanity, I think.
I think I was on here one time. Fintan wasn't on, and John and I just talked about Marvel movies. I think we spent like 4 minutes on an actual topic for gambling and talked about Marvel movies.
Well, I think they've really run out of steam now, Steve, and I think they're mining the wrong characters. I mean, Kraven the Hunter, a fucking movie about Kraven the Hunter. He was a shitty character, but he was a B or even a C character in Spider-Man.
I don't even know who Kraven the Hunter is.
Nobody raves about Kraven the Hunter's brilliant comic storylines because they were crap. The only good Kraven comics were the ones where he was in with Spider-Man. He's a B or a C character. Yeah, let's spunk 120 million on a movie about him. People are bound to want to watch it. But anyway, what do I know? Nobody ever phones me and says, John, what do you think? Because I go, don't be so fucking stupid.
Isn't that the Carl Pilkington thing from Ricky Gervais when he did made the movie? He pitched a movie to the guys, and they're like, "Who did you pitch?" And he's like, "Clive Warren," and they're like, "Who?" And he was trying to say Clive Owen, but he was like pitching like people that didn't exist, and it's a great little Ricky Gervais show thing where they just make fun of Carl, obviously, about like how hot they're like. He's like, I can't understand what state the UK movie industry is in where they have a meeting with you.
We have had a good Clive Owen story on this podcast.
Ooh.
Fintan won't remember it because he doesn't remember shit that I say. He remembers guests and stuff, not me. Yeah, right. So, Steve. Just bear with me 1 second.
I'm just Googling who Clive Owen is.
So Clive Owen but British actor, pretty successful as British actors go. Not top of the tree, but very, very competent, and he's been in some terrific movies. Anyway, a mate of mine had a bookshop in a place called Harwich, which is relatively famous. Well, no, it's not. It should be, because Harwich is the place where the Mayflower actually originated. They did all the chandling in Harwich, then it sailed around to Plymouth, picked up the rejects, and then went to America.
Went to Plymouth.
Yeah, Plymouth to Plymouth. I mean,
yeah, coincidence.
I know, it's wild. Do you think they knew? I'm not sure.
Isn't Plymouth Rock like really small?
Or something like that? It's one of those like really
disappointing.
It's been stolen before. It's not even the real thing. They landed in Provincetown, which is the very tip of Cape Cod. But yeah, it's pretty bad. It's like so fake of a thing that you're like, come on. But yeah, they believe it was stolen at one point.
Jesus.
You can get it up with some chains.
So my mate's got this bookshop, and he's got like your affordable stuff is out the front, and he's got his posh stuff that he mostly sells online out the back. First edition, modern first editions, folios. Or, he's got some beautiful stuff. Some stuff that you just don't see anymore.
Is this the secondhand porn store story?
No, that was I used to live above the secondhand porn store.
So I was just thinking.
He must have spent a fortune on his laminator. Anyway, so my mate, he always used to say he can tell as soon as somebody walks in whether they've got any money or not. And he would never. I've never been wrong. I've never been wrong. As far as you know, nope, I've never been wrong. I can tell. It's like I can smell it. Okay, fair enough. Anyway, this bloke comes in. I mean, this is like, we had this guy at school who he used to fuck up all of his jokes because he'd tell you the punchline before he told you the joke. And we used to say, "Oh, has Darren told you that joke?" And he'd go, "Yeah, how did he tell it to you?" Well, he said, "Have you heard the joke about the slow natives?" I said, "No." He said, "What are the brown things between elephants' toes?" No, but that is a true story. That is exactly the joke, and it's exactly how he told it. Introduced it with the punchline, and it's a terrible joke anyway. And this was back in like 1988 or whatever. It was a shit joke, shitly told. Killed it by telling us the punchline first. So anyway, I've already told you the punchline to this, but I'm going to steam ahead anyway. So, bloke comes into his bookshop, and he's looking around and, and all of that jazz. And mate's like, "Looking for anything in particular? Can I help you with anything?" The guy sees that there's books out the back. And he goes, "It's more out the back. Can you mind if I just go and have a look?" And my mate said to him, "Oh, nothing out there you'd be interested in. That's, all the first editions and, it's the really rare stuff and all of that." And he's like, oh, okay. Can I go and have a look? Anyway, guy went out the back, had a look, left. Yeah, great, I'll be back another time and all that. Mate then realizes it was Clive Owen. And then it gets worse. This was like 3 days after he'd gotten the Oscar nomination for Closer. So, I mean, it's not like he had any excuse for not knowing who he was. And this guy's a big movie fan as well. And Owen had just bought this, I don't know if he still owns it, but it's a fantastic, really beautiful Art Deco house in Essex. It just stands on its own. I mean, it's a fucking beautiful place. Really, really architecturally, probably unique. And he just bought it and he was having a look around the local area. And it's just like, you can smell money, can you? No, you can't. Anyway, that's our Clive Owen story.
Funny, I'll give you a funny tidbit about Plymouth Plantation, which is like a touristy, like field trips go there. So they have a native area, and then they have like a pilgrim area. So the pilgrims have to stay in character the whole time. They're like doing work. They're working in the gardens. There's like 15 houses, fence, all this stuff. And then there's the native village, and the natives don't have to be in character at all. So it's this really funny dichotomy where you go into the native village and you're just talking to them. He's like, "Oh yeah, I live over in Everett." It's just shooting the shit. They're like doing that. There's one guy just plays like this native, kind of like a soccer style game. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll show you how to play." And you're just talking to him. Then you go over and you're in this pilgrim area, and then not allowed to break character whatsoever. So I'm like, well, they got something out of it, right? Like, it's like, Jesus, it's such a
tricky
strange
one to navigate, right? Because if you're in character, is that racism kind of thing, right?
Yeah, it's very, very strange. So they don't break character, but then you go over and you're just basically just talking to people in this other area.
It's bonkers. Anyway, on that note, Steve Ruddock, thank you very much for joining us.
All right, guys. Good to catch up. Always a pleasure.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Gambling Files podcast, please find us on LinkedIn. Give us a big, juicy, succulent like. That nearly went wrong. You can find us under the name The Gambling Files Podcast. You can find us on Twitter under The Gambling Files. I think the handle is just @GamblingFiles. You can connect to myself, John Bruford, or Fintan Costello, also on LinkedIn. We're also both on Twitter. And you can find all of our previous episodes at www.thegamblingfiles.com. If you enjoyed it, please share, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, and we'll see you next time.